Hi, this is the second part of our series on layout customization for forms. Um, in this, we're going to go through a few more options, some of the more advanced options for form layout and also for data entry. Okay, so we're going to kick off looking at one aspect of data entry, in fact, to specify the maximum size for a particular field. Um, Right now, if I click on, for example, the manufacturing code, there's really no limit to what I can put in this. I think the actual limit is like 256 characters, but it really won't stop you from entering anything you like into that field. So we're going to go and look at some options that we have for actually limiting what can be put into a particular text entry field. So first, we're going to go to manufacturing code, and we're going to go to the advanced entry underneath this. So we click on advanced, click plus. Now you notice down here we have a field called maximum size. This allows you to specify, as it says in the help text, this allows you to specify the maximum number of characters that should be entered in for that particular field. So if I put 10 here, it will actually stop me from entering in more than 10 characters. Now what's also interesting, if it's a file field, so if it's holding an attachment, this field is actually going to specify the maximum size of the attachment. It won't let you attach a file larger than, say, 10k, so you put in 10,000 here because it's in bytes. So keep that in mind for files. Right now we're just going to be looking at text fields. So let's try putting 10 in there, click OK, and we're going to republish that. Click back here and refresh it. Okay, so now when I type into manufacturing code, it stops. Even though I'm typing, it stops at 10 characters. It will not let you put more than 10 characters in. So that's quite useful in itself. But let's say that it's a particular format and we don't want them to enter in anything except that particular format. In this case, we can use something called the input mask. The input mask is also a new feature, so you need to have the latest version to use that. But it's also in the advanced section underneath a particular field definition. So we're in manufacturing code here, and we're in the advanced, so let's edit that and look at the input mask right here. Now it says that for the input mask you use 9 for a digit and A for a letter. Or star for either, and all others are mask literals. So let's say that the manufacturing code is a particular format. Let's say it's 999, so it's going to be 3 digits, a dash, 3 more digits, a dash, and let's say 2 letters. So that's going to be the mask or the format of our field. So we get rid of the maximum size. We don't need that anymore, because that's going to be defined by the mask. Click update and we'll republish this and refresh it. Okay, so now when I click in the field, you see that it has some underscores and dashes which tell you the general format of what you have to enter in. Now if I try to type in a letter right now, like the letter G, it actually doesn't let me enter that in because it has to be in a particular format. It needs to be a number. So I can put in digits, so I type in 5, 4, 6, and notice how it automatically skips the dash that I entered in because that's called a mask literal. And again, I cannot enter in any letters, so I enter in just digits. Now the last one, the last part of this code is alpha. It has to be an alphabetical character. So I cannot enter in any digits here, and instead I have to enter in characters. And beyond that, it doesn't let me enter in anything at all. So it's a very, very specific format that you have control of there, and that will greatly reduce input error when people are entering in fields. They're not going to make as many mistakes because it's limiting what they can actually enter in. So that's a very useful feature when you're creating forms, especially for codes. The same can be used for telephone numbers also. Now there is another feature that we're going to go into now, and that is setting calculated fields. Calculated fields are fields that are not entered in by the user. Instead, they're defined either as a formula, or they're entered in through scripting, or perhaps a workflow stage will actually set the field to be a particular value. But it's never anything which is going to be entered in by the user. So it could be a derived field also, something that's derived from another field. So to set something to be a calculated field, you just edit it and you specify is calculated. So I edit this field here, display settings, and sorry, not display settings, in entry settings, and we set the calculated to yes. And if I click update on there and we publish this, then we'll see that the reorder field is now gone from the field. It's now gone from the form. It's no longer there. And that's because it's only going to be entered. It's only going to be entered in scripting or as a formula. Now, once we do enter this record in, it will show up in the form afterwards. So you can view it. You just cannot edit it. So this is really a way of making a field read-only, so that it cannot be edited by the user. So that's the calculated option. You may also have noticed that when you're editing fields, you can specify whether they're mandatory or not. If they're mandatory, they have to be entered in. They cannot exist in the database without being filled in at all. If you don't enter in the field, it'll come up with a validation error when you're trying to enter it in and tell you that that field is required. So I'm going to try setting the product name to be mandatory, and we'll see what that looks like. I'm just going to refresh this. So I'm going to try clicking OK without entering anything in, and it comes up with the field product name must be entered. So that's the mandatory field. It automatically does that, and it will go through for every field that is mandatory in that form. So that's a very useful feature in itself. Okay, another feature is something called hide if unset. Hide if unset will actually hide a field if it hasn't been set by the user. So if it still has its default value, then it will be hidden from the form when you view the form. So that can be useful for certain fields, like here, for example, date discontinued. We don't necessarily want to show the date discontinued unless it actually is set. So we can just click on this and we add a flag called hide if unset. Oops, I didn't actually add that. Okay. So we add hide if unset. Now, if I publish it now, we have to actually enter in some data here, but okay, so let's put in, let me think, a chair type furniture. We're not going to enter in discontinued, so we're going to say there's introduced, let's say, a couple of days ago. We don't need to put anything else in at this point. So that enters in our record there. But now when I click on the record to show the form, you notice that the date discontinued isn't visible. It's not showing up in here, and that's because it isn't set. So if I edit this now and I set date discontinued to be today and update it, now you see the field actually shows up. So it hides it if it isn't set, or if it has its default value. You can set the default value, by the way, for a field simply by editing it and setting the default, which is under display settings. So here I can actually put MISC for the type, and that way if I don't specify a type, it'll actually go into the system as MISC. But also if the hide if unset is set, then it will only show the type field if it has a value that's different to MISC. So that can be quite useful. Okay, the next thing to show you is the admin only flag. The admin only flag will hide a field if you're not an administrator. So it will show the field only to administrators. certain things you want to actually hide from regular users who are not administrators. Perhaps you want to, for example, here we have sales per day. Perhaps that's not something that you want everyone to see. So you can click on this and you can add a flag called admin only. And that will hide that field if you're not an administrator. A similar field to that is actually admin edit only. Admin edit only will stop you from editing that field, so it will hide it from the form. It won't include it in the form unless you're an administrator. So it doesn't allow you to edit or change that field unless you're an administrator. That can be very useful for certain fields. We use it on the user record. We don't allow a user to do certain things on their user profile. We don't allow them to set themselves to be the administrator, for example. So we use that field assigned to the admin field. It can be useful for different areas of your application as a kind of lightweight security measure. Okay, the next thing that we're going to discuss is the enabled when. Now in our products here we have the hide if unset on the date discontinued. We're going to remove that right now because I want to show you something different. Now the date discontinued only makes sense if the discontinued flag is set to true. So we're going to actually disable that field unless that is set to true. To do that we use something called enabled when. Now to set that, we edit the record, we go to display settings, and down here there's a field called enabled when. Now this is a simple expression, which means it's just a field equals a value, or field doesn't equal value, or field is greater than value. So here we put discontinued equals true. Once we've set that, we publish the application and we click edit to edit our field. Now you'll notice now that this is actually disabled. You cannot click it. But as soon as I click yes, it enables, and now I can actually click it and set the value to a different one. So this enables you to disable fields based on the value of another field in the form, and it does that dynamically as you change that field. So enabled when is very useful. Another feature that I'm going to mention is the format code. The format code allows you to format numbers. Now we don't. Do we have? Yeah, maybe we do. We do have a number. The sales per day was a number field because that's a floating point. So let's take the admin only off for that. The sales per day is going to be displayed as a number, but let's say we want it displayed differently. Let me just show you how it's actually displayed right now. Let's see, it is right here. So we put 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that shows us 1, 2, 3, 4, which is fine. But let's say that we want to actually show the two decimal places for that field. So we edit it. We go to format code, and here we can just say we can use a format code like this. This is a standard format code where the pound symbol is used for optional digits, 0 is used for mandatory digits, and then you can put points and then zeros or pound symbols after that. This is similar in some ways to the mask actually, but it's not exactly the same. So let's update that and publish this. And now you see that the sales per day shows up as 1,234.00. We can even put a $sign at the beginning of that if we wanted to, using the format code. Okay, the last thing that we're going to go into for form layout is field renditions. Field renditions allow you to change the color of a field based on a value. Now you specify those either in two places. Either you can have row renditions, which we're going to go on about in the next video when we're talking about lists. that's actually underneath the application tab itself, where you have record renditions, or you specify it in a particular field. So we can say, for example, that if discontinued is yes, we want that to show up as red. So what we would do is we would click on discontinued, we go to field renditions and click plus. Now in here we can say, we can give it a title, and the condition will be a DBF script condition. So here we put #input because input is actually the current record. And we can say if discontinued is true, then we want to apply bold, so we set this here, and we want to also apply a color, so we change apply font color, and we select the color right here, and we're going to make it red, so it's difficult to actually miss. Now while I'm using the same field here, I don't have to use the same field. I can actually reference other fields on the record also. So let's see what this does. So right now it's not discontinued, so it's the regular color. And let me just change that to discontinued as yes, and you see that now the field turns red. Now I could have done the same thing for the date discontinued, so that if it is discontinued it shows up as red in here. You can also change the background color as well, which will change like the rectangle around the field. Maybe that might make it stand out a little more, but it's completely up to you. You'll notice also that that shows up as red in this list here also when you're looking at the whole database list. But we're going to go into lists in the next video. That just about wraps it up for the form layout. Thank you.